Did you know that the story of Islam in Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim-majority nation, isn't one of conquest, but of spices, trade, and peaceful exchange? It's a fascinating journey that began over 1,000 years ago, carried on the winds of the global spice trade. Let's travel back in time to the 7th century. The Indonesian archipelago, or Nusantara, was already a bustling hub of international commerce. It was the crossroads connecting the great civilizations of China, India, the Middle East, and even East Africa. Ports along the coasts of Sumatra, Java, and the Maluku Islands were magnets for merchants seeking precious commodities like pepper, cloves, and nutmeg spices worth their weight in gold. Among these seafaring traders were Muslims from Arabia, Persia, and India. They sailed on monsoon winds, bringing with them not just goods to trade, but also their faith, their culture, and a new way of life. They weren't an invading army. They were merchants, scholars, and travelers. Early historical records and accounts from foreign travelers tell us that small Muslim communities began to form in parts of the archipelago long before Islam became a major political force. Take Barus, for example, a port on the west coast of Sumatra. It's considered one of the oldest trading posts with direct links to the Islamic world. Archaeologists have found tombstones with Arabic inscriptions dating back centuries, suggesting that Muslim settlers lived there side by side with the local population. The spread of Islam in these early days was slow, gradual, and organic. It happened through everyday interactions in bustling marketplaces. Trust was the currency of trade, and as local communities built relationships with Muslim merchants, they were also introduced to Islamic beliefs and values. These merchants often stayed for long periods, sometimes marrying into local families. They didn't impose their faith. They shared it through their actions, their integrity in business, and through simple, respectful dialogue. It was a process of cultural exchange, not coercion. This peaceful approach allowed Islamic ideas to blend into the existing social fabric of the islands. By the 13th century, this quiet cultural diffusion began to take on a more formal political shape. The first Islamic kingdoms, or sultanates, started to emerge. The most famous early example is the Sultanate of Samudera Pasai in modern-day Esa, northern Sumatra. Its strategic location right on the Malacca Strait, one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, was key to its success. Pasai quickly became a thriving center for both commerce and Islamic learning. It minted its own gold coins and sent diplomatic envoys to China and other major powers. Scholars from across the Muslim world were drawn to Pasai, turning it into a beacon of knowledge that helped spread Islamic teachings further throughout the archipelago. From Pasai, the faith traveled along the same maritime routes that brought the traders, carried by scholars, sailors, and merchants to other islands. Now, let's turn to Java, the most populous island in Indonesia. Here, the story of Islam's spread takes on a unique and beautiful cultural dimension. The key figures in this chapter were the Wali Songo, or the Nine Saints. These were revered religious teachers who understood the deep cultural roots of Javanese society, which was predominantly Hindu-Buddhist at the time. Instead of demanding that people abandon their traditions, the Wali Songo adopted a brilliant strategy of cultural fusion. They used art forms that people already knew and loved to convey Islamic messages. They told stories using wayang kulit, the traditional shadow puppet theater, infusing the ancient epics with Islamic values. They composed music using the gamelan orchestra and wrote poetry that blended local mysticism with Sufi teachings. This ingenious approach made Islam feel familiar and accessible, not foreign or threatening. It allowed the faith to take deep root in Javanese soil without erasing the island's rich cultural heritage. This process culminated in the rise of the Demak Sultanate in the late 15th century. Demak became the first major Islamic political power in Java, gradually taking over from the declining Hindu-Buddhist Majapahit Empire. But again, this was less of a violent conquest and more of a gradual shift in power and allegiance, driven by this powerful cultural and religious movement. The legacy of the Wali Songo is still visible everywhere in Java today, from the architecture of ancient mosques to the philosophical depth of Javanese arts. Meanwhile, in the eastern part of the archipelago, the spice trade was once again the main driver. The Maluku Islands, known to the world as the Spice Islands, were the original source of cloves and nutmeg. The immense value of these spices put these small islands at the center of global attention. Here, local rulers saw the advantages of aligning with the powerful network of Muslim traders. The kingdoms of Ternate and Tidor officially adopted Islam, which strengthened their political authority and gave them direct access to the wider Islamic world's trade and diplomatic networks. This transformation happened just as European powers like the Portuguese and the Dutch began arriving in the 16th century, desperate to control the spice trade. For the people of Maluku, Islam became not only a matter of faith, but also a unifying force in their resistance against foreign colonial ambitions. So, when we look at the big picture, the spread of Islam throughout the Indonesian archipelago is a remarkable story of adaptation and coexistence. It didn't arrive as a monolithic force that wiped away everything in its path. Instead, it interacted with local cultures, creating unique expressions of the faith that are still vibrant today. In Sumatra, it was deeply connected to maritime trade. In Java, it was woven into a rich tapestry of art and mysticism. In the Spice Islands, it became intertwined with political power and anti-colonial struggle. The spice routes were more than just commercial highways. They were conduits for ideas, beliefs, and new identities. Islam flowed along these routes, following the rhythm of the ocean currents and trade winds, and became an inseparable part of the region's identity. Today, the echoes of this history are everywhere in Indonesia. You can see it in the architecture of centuries-old mosques built next to ancient temples, in the graves of the early saints and scholars, and in the maritime traditions of coastal communities that still look to the sea. This history shows us that the Indonesian archipelago was never an isolated place. It has always been a dynamic, globally connected region. The story of Islam's peaceful arrival through the spice routes is a powerful testament to how human interaction, cultural dialogue, and mutual respect can shape the course of history. It is a legacy of openness and exchange that continues to define Indonesia's unique place in the world.